HMCS Ontario was a Minotaur-class light cruiser, and indeed the lead ship of the class, at least if you call it the Minotaur class, some call it the Swiftsure class, but anyway. HMS Minotaur was laid down in November 1941, launched in July 1943, and transferred to the Royal Canadian Navy in July 1944, before completion. Thus, she commissioned as HMCS Ontario on the 25th of May 1945 at the Belfast Yard, where she, along with a surprising number of the Royal Canadian Navy's 1940s and 1950s era capital assets, had been built. The name Ontario had a history of service in Canadian waters, but hadn't been used for over a century after its initial use in two small wooden warships at the start of the 1800s. As the various ships of the class all carried slightly different weapons outfits, it's good to note her particular fit here. The main battery consisted of 9 6-inch 50 caliber Mark 23 guns in 3 triple turrets, 2 forward, super firing, and 1 aft. The secondary heavy anti-aircraft battery consisted of 10 4-inch 45 caliber quick-firing Mark 16 guns in 5 twin mounts. Additionally, light anti-aircraft cover was provided by 4 quad 40mm pom-pom mounts, 6 single 40mm boffin AA guns, and the total firepower was rounded out by a pair of triple 21-inch torpedo tubes. As the date might suggest, by the time she made it to the Pacific Theatre as part of 4th Cruiser Squadron, it was too late for her to be in active service against Japan. Instead, she conducted numerous small cleaning and tidying operations in the immediate post-war environment, including in particular helping to restore order in Hong Kong, where she took part in the 21-gun salute celebrating the end of the war, with her crew taking part in parades and a friendly softball match with some of the locals. Following the festivities, she was ordered out to sea and was in an ideal position to help out the damaged oiler Wave King, which had been in tow before it was hit by a typhoon, which Ontario had ridden out whilst at sea, hence her orders to depart rather than risk damage in harbour. This attempt to assist Wave King was quite challenging, as the seas in the aftermath were still high, and it took several hours to secure a tow cable that didn't immediately come apart. Nonetheless, Wave King was successfully brought back to Hong Kong harbour, and with that done, she headed across the ocean for a refit in Esquimalt via Pearl Harbor in November 1945. Assigned to the Pacific coast, post-war would see the Ontario take part in a number of Royal Canadian Navy achievements. She headed a task force that visited Hawaii and the US Navy contingent based there, before taking part in exercises alongside the US Navy and Royal Navy in the Caribbean, along with 4 Royal Canadian Navy destroyers, the Micmac, Huron, Cayuga, and Sioux, as well as the carrier Magnificent, where by day the Canadian contingent were an attacking force, simulating an assault against a harbour, and then by night they would simulate a defending force against the other 2 squadrons' assault. This was then followed by joint exercises in submarine hunting against Royal Navy and US Navy submarines, convoy escort, repelling hostile air assault with the aircraft helpfully donated by Magnificent, and hunting enemy surface ships by night. She would then head across the Atlantic and Indian Oceans to work alongside the Australians, and having almost completed the Anglo-Sphere Cooperation bingo card, she headed back to Canada via a number of other ports, including New Zealand, thus completing the score, arriving just in time to meet the then Princess Elizabeth and her new husband and ex-Royal Navy officer, Prince Philip, who would board the ship for part of their tour of Canada. A slightly more mundane training cruise followed, in the course of which the ship was struck off Buenos Aires by a merchant ship that tried to overtake it and then turn into it. With the starboard propellers damaged, she was forced to return home at reduced speed for repairs. When these were complete, she was headed back across the Atlantic to see her erstwhile passenger crowned Queen Elizabeth II, before conducting a series of additional training cruises, which pretty much encapsulated the rest of her operational career, which lasted until 1958, when she was sold for scrapping.
That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. If you have a comment or suggestion for a ship to review, let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to comment on the pinned post for dry dock questions.